Hey, and welcome to the Landing Spot podcast. Today, I have with me Kim Strong. Kim is a family nurse practitioner. She is actually double board certified to do both family practice and functional medicine. And I'm really excited to have Kim on today because she is my go-to for people who have anything going on that maybe their doctors have not been able to figure out what is the root cause, how do we actually how do we help someone get better rather than just throw medicine at symptoms? I have a ton of trust in the more functional minded practitioners. And I have personally worked with Kim, and she just never disappoints. So, Kim, welcome to the show. And thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a really interesting story. So I would love just to dive into that. Tell me a little bit about your background. I think you are former military, and then you have gone on this holistic health route and really gone above and beyond because of your personal health story. So just start wherever you feel most comfortable and tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. Born in Mississippi, I ended up living in several states in the South, and it was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Knew early on that I wanted to be a doctor. Of course, nurse practitioner is what ended up in my plans, but from an early age, I remember, my mom telling me, "Well, Kim, I don't know how we're going to send you to college." And anyhow, I ended up going into the Air Force, and I wanted to do medicine. I wanted to be in medicine. I mean, medical assistant, whatever. I had no degrees at the time, and they put me in military intelligence. Well, that was cool. I mean, I was young and stationed in England and Germany, and seeing some things that, were just jaw-dropping, being in the intelligence world, which is cool. I mean, I learned a lot of things and got to travel all over Europe. I could have gone to work for the NSA as a civilian once I got out of the military. And I said, oh my gosh, I could have made great money then too. And would have had to gone back to England. But I'm like, no, my heart's in the medical field. That's what I want to do. And while I was in the military, I went to college at night. So I started college at the University of Maryland European Division in at Chicksands, England. So when I got back to the States, I've gone to several different colleges and found my way, into being a nurse practitioner. That was just where the stars aligned to. And when I was in nurse practitioner school, I started, here I saw people patients that were, it was like they were coming in the hospitals like it was a revolving door. Mm-hmm. And, okay, well, here comes such and such patient again. And what I was learning, I went to the medical field because I wanted to help people. I wanted to help people get better. But what I was learning was that we were just throwing pills at them and, zipping them up and sending them on their way. And then people would have more problems from the medication side effects, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, okay, this is a little insidious. And so I got to burnout as an RN pretty quick. And so I'm like, okay, I just need to do something else. I was working on a med surg floor and a pediatric unit. And I was like, I need to do something else. Maybe I need to go into emergency medicine, something. But I don't know, or I've got to get out of nursing. I can't keep doing this where I see that it's like people on a hamster on a wheel spinning. And so, the manager for the nurse manager for the medical ICU and the burn ICU. I was like, no, don't quit. No, don't quit. Please come help me. You know, I know what your work ethic is like. And so when I got into working in the medical ICU and the burn ICU, I was kind of like, oh, okay, all right, I'm doing something here. You know, I took care of some very, very sick people. I mean, it was nothing to go to work and you're saving two people's lives all day long. And so I was like, okay, well, medicine has a place here. You know, emergencies, you know, these burn victims, etc. Um, Working in the ICU, I did reach burnout because I was in nurse practitioner school at the same time. But when I was in nurse practitioner school, I started feeling not so good, tired. And, you know, I thought I was just burned out, exhausted. I burned the candle at both ends all the time. But it was just different. And I've always been a bodybuilder, marathon runner, you know, very athletic. And anyhow, the biggest complaint that I had was fatigue. Well, so some time goes on. I'm a nurse practitioner. I actually found functional medicine. I found nutritional medicine probably my last year in nurse practitioner school because I did go to 3 local doctors, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't go to the doctor, but I need some help. I'm exhausted. Like this isn't even right. Something's not right. You know, and they did lab work on me, and oh well, all your labs are fine. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I'm just tired, you know, it's just my head or what have you. Well, I found a nutritional medicine with my local chiropractor, and she worked with me for a little bit. And I was like, okay, all right, like I can see this. You know, you get back when there's deficiencies in the body, and you can get somebody feeling better. Well, I wasn't 100% there, you know, feeling better yet, but something was going on. And then I heard about a functional medicine practitioner locally and ended up spending some time in her clinic when I was in nurse practitioner school. And I just saw a whole different realm of things. You know, she was talking about stuff that I wasn't even learning in my current family nurse practitioner program of study. So I just listened and I was like, oh, wow, this stuff makes so much more sense. So it was that year, I think it was 2012. I went to my first functional medicine conference, live conference. I had already done a functional medicine class online. So crazy me, here I'm working in the burn ICU full time, trying to work on finishing up my family practitioner program of study. And then I start doing some classes online with the functional medicine program. And so then I go to my first conference in Las Vegas in December of 2012. And it was, it was so big, and there were just so many people there and so many neat different things. And I remember the first thing I thought, I was like, wow, all these people think like me. They think something different. And I didn't even know what I thought yet. I just knew the answer wasn't 100% in conventional medicine, and there was something else out there, and I was looking. So the more I took classes along the functional medicine, metabolic, nutritional medicine course, man, the more I was hooked. It just made sense. I'm kind of a nerd, and I don't really understand things or concepts sometimes unless they're explained to me at a very, very in-depth level. What's going on with this ion channel, you know, what's going on with this sodium potassium pump, what's going on with this enzyme, etc. And the one thing I loved about functional medicine, they were explaining like you were getting all the meat and potatoes. I mean, it was a brain marathon anytime you would go to a conference or take a class, but that's how I understood it. And that stuff made sense. Oh, well, if this enzyme's not working, well, you know, give somebody the enzyme or what have you, versus, oh, well, let's try this, you know, acid reducer medicine and create about 5,000 other problems.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know,
Yep.
give them enzymes. So anyhow, as I get more and more and more into functional medicine, honestly, what happened was I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I'm like, okay, I got the tools, I can figure this out. And you know, okay, well, I've got this. Okay, well, I've got that. And I'm like, this is insidious. I don't want all these problems, and I became autoimmune, everything. I had 4 different autoimmune issues, kept getting yeast overgrowth of the gut, kept getting parasites, and I explained probably the first 3 parasites away by, I went to Mexico on that girls trip, or I went on that cruise and ate that ceviche on the beach in St. Thomas or something. But the last 2 parasites, I couldn't explain. And I knew I was getting rid of them and they would be different parasites. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what is the deal here? I must say wormy. And these were just crazy problems to have. Well, lo and behold, I finally just got so aggravated because I was like, okay, even though I have all these wonderful tools, I don't know what's going on with me. And nobody else does either. Well, so how I figured out what was wrong with me, I literally started looking into research why somebody would have parasites so frequently. We're talking 5 different parasites in 2 years. And I came across something about mold, M-O-L-D, mold toxicity. And I'm like, no. I came across it again and again. I'm like, oh. And the third time I came across it, it said, well, someone may have chronic parasites if they are living in a water damaged building and have resultant mold toxicity from it. The parasites feed off the mold in the body, the fungus in the body. And I was just like, okay, my house has had water damage. Well, incidentally, by this time, I had my own clinic, but I used to work at a clinic that was a very, very old building. The floor creaked when you walk. I remember in the hallway, they had this big orange cone, like you would see out, on with somebody working on the road. And they would say, well, don't step there. You might fall through, the floor. And I remember it having a very, very musty smell and everything. So here I'm starting to put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, okay, when I started feeling bad is when I was in nurse practitioner school. And guess where I did a lot of my clinicals? At that building with those doctors. And incidentally, they later hired me because I knew them all really well. And then I worked there for 3 years. So I was probably dang near 6 years into this. And that is when I realized I had mold toxicity from the clinic that I used to work in for my home, because my home had water damage at the time. It was kind of like God was trying to say, hey, Kim, I need you to see this. And so ironically enough, this is kind of how God works is, once I started learning about mold toxicity, nobody around here knew anything about mold toxicity. I mean, doctors thought I was crazy. I'm like, I need some help with this. I got a referral to allergy and immunology and to infectious disease. Do you know, I sent them what labs I had, this urinary mycotoxin test that shows that, you're peeing out some mold. And showed them tests at my house. I mean, just what the few things that I needed to test. And allergy and immunology and infectious disease wouldn't even see me. I had to submit those labs to them for their review. They wouldn't even see me. So I'm kind of like, okay, great. I'm on my own here. So interestingly enough, I had to figure out myself how to save my own life. Because I'm going to tell you, at this point in 2018, I was making plans for my death. I was so sick. It was not good. But I was flying all over the country to different classes, taking different classes, trying to learn how to treat myself, how to help myself. But going back to this is how God works, after that, I mean, it's like I started getting mold toxic patients in droves, and I, it's crazy because I can spot them in my way now, okay, this problem is this, and rarely am I wrong if, about somebody. But, I remember being extremely mad at God when I was so sick. I'm like, really? Like, you want me to be a nurse practitioner? You want me to heal your people, but here I am sick as snot. And didn't even know how to get myself better. And I was mad. I was mad at God. And he literally told me, he said, well, how can you know what they know until you feel what they feel? So I get it. And I am able to pick it out a lot. But that's not the only thing that I deal with. I deal with tons of environmental toxicity. Before I knew anything about me being mold toxic, I would dabble in heavy metal toxicity and stuff like that, especially as it related to somebody having a thyroid issue. And when I was learning how to save my own life, I delved off into all kinds of environmental medicine. So today I deal with tons of mold toxicity, heavy metal toxicity, pesticides, insecticides, chemicals, radiation, chemo. But that is a big part of my practice. I never meant to get into all that. I love doing women's hormones and men's hormones. I love doing thyroid. I love doing autoimmune, helping people with GI issues, all kinds of different things. That I certainly didn't want to get into working with these crazy sick people, in environmental medicine. But once you learn it, and it's almost a challenge. It's like, okay, I'm gonna get this patient better,
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, I kind of rambled on that one.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, I loved that about you when I came to you. And, my scenario is insignificant comparatively, right? But I still wanted answers because I know that there are answers. And you were taking notes, and then you set your folder down and you looked at me and you're like, Allison, I'm not going to stop until we find the answer. So, and I have every bit of confidence in that. And that's what patients and clients deserve. And that's not what we're getting from a lot of our Western medicine practitioners. And I don't want this to become a show where I just hate on Western medicine. The show I recorded yesterday, we talked about, that guest, she had her own story. However, I also want the average woman out there to know that she's not crazy. She's not alone. I speak with women all over the US, and they tell me the same thing over and over again. My doctors don't believe me. My doctors are passing me around. I haven't gotten better. I've gotten worse. I don't know what's wrong with me. The chronic fatigue is insane. And so I want the average woman to know that you deserve to have answers, and the answers are out there. We've just got to go outside of the normal scope. And that's hard for a lot of people to do because we grew up trusting certain people with certain things. But that's why I'm so grateful that there are people like you out there who have these letters behind your name, who have put in the work. And I think my favorite practitioners or people that are in this arena are those that have gone through something with their own health, because you do recognize it and you empathize. So it's not just, throwing medicine at somebody. It's, I've been there. I know how this feels. And I think that you have an even greater desire to help. So, so I'm curious. I do want to stay on the mold toxicity thing for a minute, because it's not something that we get to talk to. I would consider you an expert. So we don't get to talk to experts much about this. So when someone comes in with significant symptoms in certain areas, and this is probably a mold toxicity case, what should we look out for? What are some of the things that you notice that are occurring there?
Well, and if your audience can't remember this, if you go to truthintegratedmedicine.com and you look under chronic inflammatory response syndrome, there's tons of signs and symptoms there. Fatigue, that chronic fatigue that is just out of this world. You may have nasal stuffiness. You may have bloating of the stomach. You may have autoimmune. So I'm just going to lay this out there now. If you're autoimmune, you're toxic with something. We just got to figure out what it is. Mold is notorious for making you autoimmune with all kinds of things. um, thyroid issues that you've never had before, hair falling out, memory issues, not sleeping. Oh Lord, I remember the nights sleep was a commodity. Urinary frequency that you actually end up peeing yourself into a chronic underlying level of dehydration. Um, the dehydration is part of why you feel so bad, but there's also lots of other things that are going on. There's mitochondrial dysfunction there. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cells. So if your mitochondria is messed up because you're toxic, then yes, you're going to have chronic fatigue. Palpitations. My heart actually went into atrial fibrillation, which is a dangerous heart rhythm over the mold toxicity. You can have anxiety, what I call brain on fire, signs and symptoms like your brain is literally swollen. And that can be being OCD, having anxiety, it can be depression too, attention issues, panic. A lot of people end up going into panic. You see people in rages sometimes. Their brain's swollen, it's on fire. Lots of GI issues again, bloating, you can have constipation, diarrhea, or both. You develop all kinds of food sensitivities, chronic headaches. It's almost like you have vision changes, and it's almost like there's just a haze over your vision. Lots of reaction things, like skin rashes. I remember my skin used to hurt. It literally used to hurt. A lot of people might call the achiness, because you get achy all over, muscles, joints, everything, skin. People might call that fibromyalgia or rheumatoid arthritis. But yeah, I remember the day just touching my skin hurt.
I recently saw something, and I can't remember who it was, and I didn't fact check it or do my own research, but they were saying that fibromyalgia and like diagnoses were BS a lot of times. A lot of times it is much more connected to autoimmune disorders.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to tell off myself, Allison, because I remember back in the day as a brand new nurse, or even a brand new practitioner before I got fibromyalgia myself, I'm kind of like fibromyalgia, really, it is a very real thing. And, I remember when I realized I had it, I'm like, is it? No, no, I am not having but I did. I ended up having it. It's a very real thing. And it's basically, it all goes back to autoimmune, but it goes back to what you're toxic with. And, and I'm going to tell you on that note, the beauty of realizing that autoimmunity is about somebody being toxic and the immune system is reacting to what you're toxic to. The beauty of that is you can reverse autoimmune issues. Most people out there will say, no, you can't. Or, it spontaneously went into remission for whatever reason, but the moral of the story is you've got to detox the person. If it's an environmental thing, get them out of their environment. And you've got to repair the person, because one thing we don't realize is when somebody becomes toxic, toxins and mold's the worst about this, ends up punching holes in the cell membranes to get inside the cells.
Oh, wow.
So then that's how you end up having so much cellular damage, why the mitochondria can end up having a problem, is people are literally poisoned at a cellular level. So what you have to do, any toxic person I deal with, there's two words you will never forget: detox, repair, because you will spend quite a bit of time doing that. And I've seen people detox, but they're kind of like, okay, I feel better somewhat. And like, okay, well, you detox, but you haven't repaired. You've got to repair your body at a cellular level.
That's so important. The thing that I saw the other day, they may have been talking more about that in regards to it being something that you just have to live with, and there's nothing you can do about it with that diagnosis or a similar diagnosis. But that's what is so important is at the end of the day, most of these chronic disease or symptoms that we are experiencing, it's our body telling us something is not right and it is fighting for our survival. And it may feel terrible, but it is actually doing us a huge favor. And so it's just getting to the bottom of it. So I am curious. The links that you had to go. So I want to talk about this. There sometimes we have to take some drastic measures to heal ourselves. And we've talked about it. That can mean, especially if you've got mold, that you need to move or change jobs. And sometimes I talk to clients about that. Like, I can't tell you what to do, but your health will continue to suffer as long as you are under a paramount of stress that you are. So that's a different subject, but going back to the mold, I mean, how does that conversation go when you're talking to a patient and you may need to move?
I tell you, sometimes I almost wish I didn't know about mold toxicity because it can take a lot to get a patient better. It really can. And then I have no control over whether they move out of their environment. And I'll tell you, like for me, so in my home, both me and my daughter got sick. And when I moved, I left everything. I'm talking furniture, everything at the old house. And I just picked up and I started over with everything. And they say that, you can take things that are not permeable with you, like your forks and, stainless steel pots and stuff like that. I was like, But you got to understand too, I went to the extreme. But when I say I was literally making plans for my death in 2018, I was. And so I'm like, I am not married to any of that stuff. And, and I didn't have everything I needed in my house straight away, but I was so sick. I was like, if I have to, I'll get a sleeping bag and sleep on the floor in my bedroom in my new house. I didn't have to do that, but it's pretty extreme. And I know one of my mentors, Dr. Andrew Heyman in Virginia, he is a big mold guru, so smart. He got mold toxicity, and he has a very, very old home. I think that home's like a couple hundred years old, and he has he had his clinic in one part of it, and then lived in the other part of it. And he had to remediate his home 3 different times because he didn't want to get rid of his house. 3 different times, and those 3 remediations cost him $100,000.
Oh.
Yeah, it's extremely, extremely difficult to deal with somebody like that when you know that, okay, I can help you, start getting better, but the moral of the story is you got to get out of that environment, or that environment is got to be cleaned up, and it's got to be cleaned up like 1,000%, not even half done, not 50%. It's got to be done 1,000%. But I'll tell you, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I am going to talk about it. Got some really interesting stuff on the works. Right now, I was sought out by a patient and a doctor in Florida a little while back. And this patient, some mold patients and pesticides and insecticide toxicity. And he moved from Florida to Mississippi, and they sought me out to work with them. Well, it's really turned out to be a beautiful relationship. So we're co-treatment. But what I had to realize is the doctor in Florida, he kind of sort of has a research project going on. But dealing with mold patients and environmentally toxic patients, we're using high dose IV vitamin C along with some other things. And that's kind of the part that I'm playing in this role. I'm infusing the high dose IV vitamin C on this patient and let him sit in my infrared sauna. Matter of fact, he's in there right now. And anyhow, and it's this doctor in Florida Dr. Michael Joseph, he is the drugless functional medicine doctor. And I'm going to tell you, he is just brilliant. I mean, absolutely brilliant. But when he started talking to me about vitamin C, I'm like, okay, well, I do high dose IV vitamin C therapy anyway, but never to help with detox. And the more he explained it, the more it made sense. I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I think about this? So I talked to him earlier, and so he's putting my name on his research project. So I'm really excited about that. And we're actually about to get a venture together where we're co-treating a lot of toxic patients. Now, why are we even doing this? I know how to detox people anyway, right? High dose IV vitamin C accelerates the detox. So what I'm used to dealing with is having a mold patient with me a year or more that I'm detoxing and repairing them. Heck, I think I really worked on it for about 3 years, and then sometimes I still kind of work on it. But he is finding that you can push somebody through a detox a heck of a lot faster. We're talking like weeks to months versus years. So I'm excited to be a part of this.
So what is it? Because I think some of my listeners they really appreciate, just a vague explanation of the science, but what is it with this that is helping expedite this process?
It's the highest IV vitamin C, that it is getting the body, creating a more favorable environment, oxidizing things, anyhow, making the environment where it's not favorable for fungus.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about it is, I never knew this until I started working with Dr. Joseph. But do you know, humans do not make vitamin C. Animals do. Cats do. We do not make plants do. We do not make vitamin C. And so that puts the environment so much less favorable, or more favorable, really, for mold to come in and just take over. And there's a lot of stuff about genetics and this and that and the other that play a role in a patient that can get mold toxic. But I think vitamin C deficiency is a huge piece of that puzzle too.
Wow. That's interesting. I'm really excited about that too, because I think, things that we battle as me, a health coach, and you, a practitioner, we live in a world where everybody wants to feel better immediately, and it takes a lot of work. Like I will use this. I'm going to borrow your two things, your phrases, detox and repair. It takes a lot of work, but when you think about, well, what's the alternative, and think about the measures that we go to when someone has cancer or another chronic disease, and your kidneys start shutting down and you're going to dialysis 3 times a week. So it will get extreme one way or the other. So it may be move out of your house and avoid all of that, or, but side tangent, but if we can find something like this IV vitamin C that can move the process along faster, I think that we will have a better chance of having a patient or a client stick with the process and reach full healing. So that's super exciting to me.
Exactly. Well, me too. Again, we're, decreasing the treatment time. But, this is something that people have to understand, that get involved with this, that, hey, we don't have an exact protocol. We're kind of sort of making this up as we go, with, labs and stuff back in it. But, yeah, the things that I'm seeing with this particular patient already is just amazing, just amazing. We're hammering on it. Bless his heart, he drives 2 hours to come here twice a week.
Wow.
The week before, he was here 3 times and, had to spend the night. But anyhow, yeah, it's a pretty stringent program, but, I wish I would have known about this when I was so crazy sick, because let me tell you what I would have done. If somebody was telling me to go to New Zealand and find the rainbow with the pot of gold or whatever, if I did that, it was going to make me better. Honey, I would have done anything.
Yeah.
Rather than, people tell me I'm crazy and there's nothing wrong with me because my labs are fine. And I want to pivot on that super quick because, you said something about it's really important for the women out there to understand if they're not feeling well, something is going on. And don't let somebody tell you you're crazy. It's all in your head. Because they told me I was crazy too. They offered me an antidepressant and I was like, I'm not depressed, And so trust me, it happens to the best of us as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that we hear often. My doctor said my labs are fine. And, one of the reasons that I take every opportunity I can to send somebody to you, especially if we're looking at thyroid, is because a lot of times that the doctor's ranges aren't tight enough. So people start experiencing these malfunctions at the cellular level at a much earlier point in the process, but according to their ranges that they look at for lab work, you're fine. Nothing has started to go awry yet. Even something like pre-diabetes, I think that your pancreas has taken a hit for at least 7 years before pre-diabetes comes out of your doctor's mouth. And so, we've got to start looking at this with a tighter lens. And that's something that I feel like you do. So I want to, because you have people that have come from other states to seek out your help. And I love that. Not just this gentleman that you've been talking about, but I remember us chatting about that in your office. So since this is a show primarily for women and hormones, let's talk a little bit about that. So what are some of the things that you feel is really important for women to understand? Maybe just a couple of points, because we are not taught as girls growing up anything about our cycle except for here's your period, here's what you do about that, right? So, but there's so much more to the story, and our hormones are actually amazing. They're not just these things that make us grumpy once a month. So anyway, tell us a little bit about what you think is, really important, a good starting point for women to understand.
Okay. Yeah, let's just start basic. So everything that we put in our mouth affects our hormones. That is so rudimentary. I'll give you a quick example of that. I had this girl, obviously had PCOS, but nobody had diagnosed her with that. She had a full beard and she would shave it twice a day to try to keep it. And she had one son that she had when she was really, really, really young. And she wanted to have another, but she hadn't had a period in like 3 years. And she's like, how can you help? Well, the very first thing I did is said, okay, let's just hold on just a minute. I want you to go vegan. Let's take away animal products and the potential for growth hormones and such. And I want you to be grain-free and excuse me, and sugar-free. I said, there's plenty to eat, right? Lots of veggies and stuff. Well, she started her period within 8 weeks of doing that.
Wow.
This is a girl that had not had a period for 3 years. We had to end up doing some more work on her. She was extremely reticent to do much, although she wanted my help, but it's okay. We kind of worked back and forth for a while. So she had a period again for a while. And then, finally, she stopped having a period again. So she's kind of like, okay, what do we do next? I'm like, okay, can we just check your hormones? I try to get her to do that initially. Let's just check her hormones. Let's just see exactly what's going on. And of course, she had elevated testosterone and anything else. So when I started helping her metabolize out that testosterone, because PCOS patients, polycystic ovarian syndrome, they are typically going to have elevated testosterone. And you don't just have to deal with that. And if you're doing some of these medicines, metformin, spironolactone, some of these things that, conventional medicine wants to give you, you're doing other things, and you can create other problems. And yes, insulin resistance, it's typically part of, having PCOS. But what I did is I just started as like, okay, I want you to have meats again, but you need to eat a whole food diet. She did all that to a T. Let's do organic as much as possible. But I helped her start metabolizing the testosterone. So just helping the body be able to do something with that testosterone so she could, get it out of her. And soft palmetto works very well for that. So anyhow, I got so tickled. This sweet girl went down to shaving her beard only once a day, and then it got more spotty. And anyhow, she ended up pregnant. Wonderful story, because that was her goal. I said, yes, it's going to start with what you put in your mouth. How much water you drink a day, minimum, we need to be drinking half our body weight in ounces of water every day. Most people just need to go ahead and push it up to a gallon. Don't forget about what you're putting on your skin. What you are putting on your skin, or what lands on your skin because of your exposure, it absorbs 4 times better than something that you put in your mouth.
Because it doesn't have to go through the digestive tract. It's straight into the bloodstream, right?
Right. So like your makeups, your perfumes, all that, body lotions, everything, the more organic or the more natural you go, the better.
Yeah. And so I want to go back to what you mentioned about metabolizing testosterone, and why when women come to me and they want to solve XYZ and lose weight and, regulate their periods, but I want to still be able to eat this, that, and the other, what I know is that if we are going to solve this without medicine, then we've got to treat our diet as the therapeutic mode that we are using. And so I can't be that health coach for you that says, sure, you can have donuts and champs on the weekend because your liver is probably already covered in some fat. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is what 1 in 2 people now. It's getting there if it's not already, but I think it's really close. And we metabolize most of our sex hormones through our liver. And so if we don't have a high functioning liver, then we're going to run into, this estrogen dominance, this excess testosterone over and over again. And so it's at that point, like you said, she had to go vegan for a while, and then she had to do organic as much as possible and all whole foods, which my clients know very well. But it is important. It is not one of those things that for a while we are detoxing and healing, or repairing, as you said, that we can go 60-40 on, 80-20 on, right? I mean, am I hitting the nail on the head there for you too? Yeah, it's important that I'm so grateful that you covered that, because it's coming from a professional, a practitioner, that we are not, I don't tell any client, this is the way that you have to live the rest of your life. However, it will take some time to heal your body. And then this will be how you primarily want to eat, so, and once clients commit to that for 12 weeks, the way that you feel is so much better, that improvement that they see. And then they have that cheat, that fun, whatever, cake and ice cream at the kids' party. And the next day they're so hungover from that sugar, they don't even want to do it again. And so it kind of starts to remedy itself at some point. Yeah.
My patients, it's like, you're going to go through a learning curve when you're learning how to eat right. That's just all there is to it. But it's almost like when, you spend a week, on whole foods, and you're feeling, oh, hang on, wow, I'm feeling better. I'm less inflamed. And then you go and you mess up one time, you can tell more, because otherwise your body's just so used to feeling like crap all the time, try whole food eating or exercising or whatever. It's just like, oh, well, I ate, I feel like crap. I ate, I feel like crap. I ate, I feel like crap. But spend a little time trying to do something different. And it didn't take much for you to feel that. And you're like, really? Oh my God. I didn't even realize how bad I felt all the time.
Yes. Yes. I hear that all the time. I can't believe I used to walk around feeling like this all the time.
And
So because this is catered to women, and why wouldn't we want to know the anti-aging, let's talk a little bit about that. So, talk to me about some anti-aging tips. I want to hear all your things.
Okay. Well, interestingly enough, vitamin C, we can't get enough of it, right? And we don't make it ourselves in our body. So, I was always taught you need to get vitamin C every route you can, whether it's orally, topically, IV, whatever. And working with this doctor out of Florida, I'm seeing that even more, vitamin C is great. The other thing that is, and let's go back and talk about that, because I love it when I can explain something that you get it, like, because that's going to help you remember why to do it. So think back of the days of scurvy, right? When the sailors were on the boats and they would get scurvy because they didn't have any fresh fruits and vegetables, right? So no vitamin C. Well, their teeth would literally fall out of their head because vitamin C helps maintain the matrix of the tissue. And so the more your tissue is intact, right, the less wrinkles that you're going to have. And the same with like the teeth. True story, my daughter, and this was several years ago. I took her to, get the braces on her mouth, and the orthodontist is like, hey, she's, she needs to go to a dentist, what is it, endodontist, or whatever, whatever, that treats gums. Her gums look really rough and beefy and everything. Well, she was mold toxic then. I just didn't know it. And so I'm like, okay, sure, give me the referral, But then I thought about it and I was like, hang on. I need to give her some vitamin C. And I gave her vitamin C at healthy doses for like a month, and she went back to her next orthodontist checkup. We never went to the referral, went back to the orthodontist checkup. He's like, oh, wow, these gums look so much better. So he went to that referral, and I was like, no, I just gave her vitamin C. He's like, okay. And anyhow, and I explained to him, I was like, well, the matrix of the tissue. And he's like, oh, okay, good thought. But anyhow, so vitamin C is one of the best and cheapest anti-aging remedies that you can get. Another thing, think about hyaluronic acid. Now, these days you're seeing a lot of stuff with hyaluronic acid in it. Somebody's finally getting the memo. Hyaluronic acid helps sort of hydrate your tissue in a whole different way. It helps muscles be more plump. It helps joints be more lubricated. It helps the matrix, the tissue as well. So true story. I'm not taking any hyaluronic acid right now, but when I am taking it in my mouth on a regular basis, you can just see like my skin just get so much tighter. There's lots of, creams and serums and stuff out there, with hyaluronic acid in them too.
That's great.
Those are two awesome things. And then the hydration and the whole food eating, organic as much as possible. And let's don't forget exercise, guys. I mean, I hit 50 this year, and I'll tell you, it is more noticeable now than ever. I don't necessarily feel like I'm building. And remember, I come from the age that I was a bodybuilder. I feel like I'm maintaining, but the more we take care of our body, the more we take care of our muscles, we're also taking care of our bones too. So it just kind of all goes in together. We have to work on taking care of ourselves.
Yes. Yes. And muscle building for women is so important. And just when I think that women have gotten the memo that we almost can't bulk up, right? 98% of us couldn't bulk up if we wanted to without some sort of special help. But it's so important and at starting, as early as you can, because you're going to build the best in your 20s and early 30s. But then, as we start to hit that perimenopausal age, we've got to hit it into high gear, because at some point when we don't have that estrogen to support, the continuation of the building, we need to at least keep it. And so it's so important, because the number one cause of mortality for the elderly population is a result of a fall. And so the minute we start losing muscle mass, we start losing mobility, we start, losing our independence. And that's where I've really been able to get that into women's heads, that it is a good thing to lift weights, because nobody wants to lose their independence any earlier than we have to.
Yeah, and on that thought, think of women with osteopenia and osteoporosis, so brittle bones. If they've got to work on their muscles to help in turn make those bones stronger. The stronger muscles, the more, basically the stronger you're going to make your bones. And think about, what helps build bone better than anything else. Some type of, weight activity, where you're pounding, whether that's walking or running or, anything that's going to give some type of impact against that bone, you're building more bone.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I love the vitamin C. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I wanted to mention, one other thing on the anti-aging realm of it. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell off on myself. I had a total hysterectomy years ago before I knew any better. And I was an endometriosis patient, and, it was coming back after having 2 kids. I'm like, I'm not doing this. Well, if I would have known then what I know now. Well, one thing I noticed, and I was just having a conversation with a patient earlier about this, I can spot a woman a mile away, that still has their ovaries, because their hair is so much thicker and shinier and healthier. Their skin, you can tell the difference, when you don't have enough of your estradiol and estriol on board, and even some DHEA and pregnenolone and such. Your skin is going to wrinkle faster. So, for those of you like myself that messed up and had a hysterectomy before you knew any better, doing some bioidentical hormone replacement therapy is a really good idea, so that you're getting those levels of hormones back up. And you don't want, we want a therapeutic level. We don't want, super physical or, super therapeutic, because that can cause problems, too much weight, whatever. I see a lot of people getting these testosterone pellets that are being overdosed all the time. They're growing 10 hairs and they are gaining weight that they can't lose, and they're mad, because they're being too much testosterone or too much estrogen or whatever. So make sure you deal with somebody that really understands the whole hormonal cascade, and not just somebody that's trained to do pellets or shots or whatever. They really need to know what they're doing, and think about what happens whenever you're overdosed. It's so funny, Allison. I had thought about doing hormone pellets about 4 times now over about the last 6 years. And every time I go to get training on it, it's like, I want to do it, because I see so many people overdose out there, and then I end up with them and they're like, fix me, Anyhow, I still do the good old fashioned bioidentical hormone cream. The base of it is wild yams. And so you're not getting, some synthetic crap that's in, pellets, or, even, Premarin and some of this estradiol that these pharmaceutical companies make. Don't do it. It's not even molecularly the same as what's in your body. It's made from pregnant horse smear urine. And if you're a nerd like me and you actually go look at the chemical structures, they're different. And so you can actually set up the stage for cancer, stroke, and heart attack by taking Premarin and estradiol and stuff like that, because your body doesn't know exactly what to do with those extra, carboxyl groups or whatever that's, on the Premarin. It's like, okay, you look somewhat similar, so I'll use you some, but the other stuff that's left over, what are you doing with it? So yeah, the good old fashioned bioidentical compounded hormone cream is what I still use with my patients, but you can keep their hormone levels more nice and steady versus all over the place too. You get a pellet and your hormone level shoots up out of range, and then it's going to constantly be decreasing the whole time. You really want a nice steady state. But yeah, as it relates to anti-aging, I think it's very important to have your hormone levels where they should be in therapeutic range. And somebody asked me, and I'm going to tell you, just like one of my mentors, Dr. Pamela Smith out of Michigan, she's who we call the hormone queen. People ask her all the time, well, how long should I be doing? So I know women that have passed and they were still doing hormones, right there at the very end. But, true story, I had this one lady that came in today. Love this lady. She is 74, doesn't look a day of it, but she has been doing hormone replacement therapy long time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And I actually would really love to have you back and talk specifically about that, because there's a lot of fear around it because of that crazy study that was done where they were looking at the populations they were looking at were not right. I just listened to a talk on this the other day. Anyway, it correlated cancer to hormone replacement, but if you dig into what they were looking at, it was not statistically significant, and there were just so many flaws in that study. So it scared a lot of people away. But like you said, it's very important that we are doing the right kind of hormone replacement therapy. Bioidentical, I want to dive into that, what that means, and why the Premarin and some of the others are so bad for you. And I don't think most women know that they're pulling this from horse urine. That right there would have a lot of women pause and say, and you're right. When after menopause, women can. So the way I've heard this best described is that week before we start our period, that week that we dread when we're still having cycles. That can be how you feel all the time post menopause if you're not taking care of yourself. And if you're, you may need to look into doing some hormone replacement so that you can feel well. There's nothing wrong with feeling really great as long as you possibly can.
All right. Yeah. We need to have another session specifically about hormones. One thing that I hate, because I deal with women of all ages, one thing that I really hate is seeing girls put on birth control pills.
Don't get me started, honey. That's that.
Well, I'm being put on birth control pills to regulate my period, or I'm being put on them because of my acne. Even my own daughter asked me, "Mom, are you going to put me on birth control pills because of my acne?" I'm like, no, no, not at all. We're going to clean up your diet because you eat like crap. Yes, even my child eats like crap. But yeah, and there's so many different things that you can do. Going back, start with what you're putting in your mouth. See what that does for your period as you clean up what you're eating. And then there's other things that I use sometimes. Chaste tree. and evening primrose oil. Wow. I mean, I don't know how many periods I've gotten regulated just with those things. It's an herb, evening primrose oil. It's just oil, like a good, fatty acid. I've even gotten girls pregnant with that because it ended up regulating their period so much or help them ovulate, where they didn't ovulate before. So there's always other options is what I'm saying. Now, as far as birth control pills for, protection against the pregnancy, well, no, okay. That's a whole different story.
It's a different story, but they're putting 11 and 12-year-olds on birth control. They're shutting off the ovulation process for these women, and their bodies have no idea. Our ability to ovulate, our fifth vital sign. I mean, this is a sign of health for a woman, and it drives me up the wall when I hear, "Oh, well, my doctor put me on this to regulate my cycle." Well, no, they've actually shut it down completely. You're not having a period; you're having a withdrawal from the medicine, and while that sounds, and so many women have said, yeah, my doctor said I didn't even have to I just skip the sugar pills and never have a period at all, and then when they do decide that they want to have a baby, or they get into their late teens, early 20s, and all of a sudden their metabolism is crashing, this is a whole new show. We have to talk more about this because it is an epidemic. It is not always the answer. And I know that you want your daughter to feel well, but there's other options. And so I get so excited when I have a mother-daughter pair come to me and they want to figure out how to do this naturally. And so many times, nutrition, sunlight, proper supplementation, it gets things right back on track. So yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because that is something that I really think we can't talk about enough.
Sometimes, Allison, we just don't know what we don't know. I mean, we can't know everything.
Exactly.
There's a lot of experts out there, but something as simple as, I mean, again, I'm going to tell off on myself. Back in the day, I mean, even though I was, a marathon runner at one point, a bodybuilder, I was ate what I wanted until I learned better. But, not know any better, you go in the store and of course, meats and veggies and stuff are better. But, I thought I was doing good if I had a can of corn, or a can of beans, well, that's healthy. Why not? So I think sometimes because we think it's on the shelf at Kroger that it's okay for us. And we know we're supposed to stay away from the Twix and the Reese's peanut butter cups or what have you. But, we think because it's there, it's okay. And then two, we've become such a society of convenience. Convenience has killed us. It really is. Just driving through Chick-fil-A or whatever, but what happened to that food? What did man do with that food before you ever even put it in your mouth? How many growth hormones were given to the chickens? How much antibiotics were given to the, to the chickens and the beef? What were they fed? Oh, they were fed grains that were harvested with GMO. It's so funny. You said you were going to ask me about my medical conference. I just came back from Idaho and had the opportunity to do an awesome conference, but this is where self-care comes in. I ended up canceling the whole conference and my mom went out there with me and we did a road trip and it was amazing. But here I am driving through Idaho and we did Idaho, Montana. And
wonderful.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. Idaho, Montana, back into Idaho. But as we're driving out through all these farmlands, I don't think I realized how much Idaho farms, and there's like wheat and stuff everywhere. And I'm like, Mom, you notice there's no crop dusting planes. In Mississippi, we still have some crop dusting planes. And I said, you know why? And she's like, it's those GMO grains, isn't it? I got so tickled. Like, yes, why do they need crop dusting when, they're injecting the DNA of the plant with pesticides and insecticides? So true story, if anybody's really interested or a nerd like me, go Google image the wheat molecules, I don't know, from back in the 1960s, 1970s. And then Google image the wheat molecule today. That's a GMO wheat molecule. They are so vastly different. Isn't that even funny? These molecules on these GMO grains are big and globular, but we call them Frankenstein grains. So here we are driving through Idaho, and I'm like, God, like all the dust as they're harvesting this wheat. It's like coming in the air conditioner. I'm just going to inhale it. But yeah, on these grains, we're feeding this stuff to our animals too. Mm-hmm. So no wonder, our health starts with our food or our illness. It depends on what we're eating, what man to do with that.
Yeah. I hear often, well, why is everybody all of the sudden gluten-free or gluten intolerant, whatever. And we didn't used to have to worry about this 30 years ago. Well, the integrity of the food is demolished, for mass production. And then you really hit a nail on the head that we cannot emphasize enough. Convenience, that is the world we live in, but it is not what will keep you well. And it has to be a priority. And that's one thing that my clients understand, and that your patients understand, that I am not here to give you a magic pill approach. I'm not here to tell you that you can, halfway do this. It's got to be a priority. However, as the saying goes, you'll make it a priority, or your health will stop you. And when women come to me and their why is because I want to see my children grow up, and at the rate I'm going, I'm not going to make it that long, then they're going to commit. But yeah, it's got to be a priority, and convenience is killing us at so many different levels. So that's an excellent point. Well, Kim, thank you so much. This was amazing. And what I'm even more excited about is we've got 52 other shows that we now know that we want to record. But you were just such a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate you sharing with us, and we look forward to having you back. And ladies, we look forward to having you back with our next episode.